The Supreme Court is weighing whether to overturn a decision that limits the amount of money political parties can spend on candidates. Republican leaders and lawmakers, including then Senator J.D. Vance, originally brought the case to the High Court. They believe that the 2001 ruling on the issue violates the First Amendment. This is just the latest Supreme Court case that could have major implications on our national elections. Last week, the justices said Texas is allowed to use its new Republican-leaning congressional map in the 2026 midterms. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson joins me now. Jessica, good to see you. What are the major arguments in this case?
So the question really is whether or not, as you said, these restrictions can stand, meaning whether or not they can withstand First Amendment scrutiny. The idea behind these restrictions is that there's limits on how much a political party can spend in coordination with a candidate. Now, there's only a few reasons why we allow any restrictions on money in politics. One of them is to prevent corruption, which is narrowly defined as quid pro quo. Another is to prevent the appearance of corruption. And then finally, a third is to prevent the circumvention of limits that serve those first two purposes. So there is a robust argument about whether or not these limits still serve those purposes and whether or not they essentially burden the freedom of speech too much. Because again, we have said back since 1976 that money spent in elections is seen as implicating the First Amendment. It's seen as a version of speech.
The conservative majority of the Supreme Court has been skeptical of campaign finance regulations. Why? And how could this decision impact our future elections?
Great question. So essentially, even since before 2010, when the court decided Citizens United, about 5 years before that, the court has been very skeptical of these restrictions, finding essentially that they might limit people's speech, that when you give money, and specifically when you spend money, that amounts to speaking. And so we need a really, really good reason to prevent people from speaking, particularly in the political sphere. You know, there was a conversation, Lindsay, this morning about who really would be benefited or burdened by this. I think those on the ground say that, in fact, Republicans would be helped by a ruling that would overturn these particular restrictions, in part because of how they fundraise and in part because parties get favorable rates from television companies when they run political ads.
Jessica Levinson, thank you.